Table topics are perhaps the most loved part of Toastmasters meetings. An impromptu Q&A session where a table topics master dreams up questions, and then we choose people from the group to answer in 1 to 2 minutes. You never know if you'll be picked. There are no right answers. You can talk about whatever you want. Table topics helps you think on your feet, and we'll leap right into it. Chris, you're a big biker. Should I commit to bicycling instead of getting a car, or is that just not realistic?
Well, it depends on how you look at it. I cycle for fun and exercise. I'm not sure that I could live my life going from place to place on a bicycle. I do have a friend, however, and he and his wife go everywhere on either public transportation or a bicycle, even if it's raining, which to me is a real challenge. In bicycling recently, this past week, I was on Highway 1, trying to cycle down hills and up hills. And I realized that cycling for your mode of transportation can be very dangerous because there's people out there that don't care if you're on a bike, and they don't care because they're in a hurry and they zip by you or come really close to you. I will stick with my car because my car can get me to someplace 50 miles away, even though I know I can do it on my bike. But by the time I get there, I'm sweaty, I'm overwhelmed, and then I have to lock my bike and walk into a place with my ugly shoes that you can't walk on steady. So I'm going to stick with a car. And a car, I can put my bike in the back seat. Everybody laughs about that. It's small enough, it fits in the back seat, and go to wherever it is I need to go. But I am not turning over my car to have my life on a bike.
Thank you, Chris. I'm convinced. Raphael, is now the time to go electric? What does a road trip look like when there aren't that many options for recharging?
When you go electric, you've got to put just a little bit more time into planning your road trip. I didn't do that on my great big road trip from the Bay Area to Eastern Utah. And the most that I got was that I was going to get beyond the reach of the last Tesla supercharger. And I just figured things out when I got there. I was on that last leg and figured, well, I better start looking. My daughter was driving. I was checking out what other electric chargers were in the town we were going to end up in. And there was one at a motel. And when we got there, there was someone parked in the space. So I went to dinner, came back, someone's still parked there. I went to hotel reception. They actually called and got the person who was parked there to leave the space so I could charge my car. And I thought, oh, I'll just sit here for an hour and get a little juice, and then we'll have enough to get back to Salt Lake City. No, it was not a supercharger. So I was gonna have to leave it there all night. I had to call a friend who was staying at another hotel to get me back to my hotel room. And then I had to get a different friend to get me back to the motel where the car was parked in the morning when it was fully charged. And then we were leaving the car parked by the river for our river rafting trip for 5 days. And I was just praying that there was enough of a charge left in the car that we could get back to Salt Lake City when we got back. Well, there was enough charge left in the car, but only just. And every time we went up some steep hills, the prediction ratcheted back. We thought maybe we wouldn't make it. Then we got to the downhill and everything was fine. So there's just a little bit more planning, but nothing like driving through Nevada, somewhere east of Winnemucca, in a regular gasoline car, seeing that sign, no gas for 30 miles, and looking at your gas gauge and going, oh, we're not going to make it. So it's the same problem. You just got to think outside the electric box.
I'm convinced. I'm waiting until there are solar panels on top of the cars or something like that. Or not convinced. Ed, there is an old-fashioned checker cab for sale in Berkeley, and it comes with a cab license. Those big giant cabs you'd see in London. What if someone gave you a car like that with a license? What would you do with that?
I'd trade it for Raphael's car. And I might call my friend Robert Rayburn, who doesn't have a car, who does everything on his bike. He also is on the board, so he gets a special thing in public transportation. There are many options. Old checker cab would be wonderful. I have an old Wedgwood stove, which I like using, but it's a remnant of a different age when energy was much cheaper than it is today. And it probably doesn't fit the 21st century. So if I had a checker cab, I would probably use it. I'm sentimental and I don't like moving things from one place to another. But it's not a 21st century car. I use a not a 21st century stove. Actually, we redid our kitchen and left the stove there. So I understand holding on to things, but I wouldn't acquire a checker cab in the 21st century. I talked to Raphael or Robert Rayburn. Back to you.
Miguel, they said we'd be driving flying cars by now, or maybe even 20 years ago we should have been flying around instead of driving on the street. What do you think is the next thing we'll see after electric cars that will bring us into that space age?
I'm actually addicted to right now to the subject, and one of the subjects that's related to that is time travel, and I was watching this debate about it, and one of the guys, the interviewee said that he could easily disprove time travel because there's a concept called the grandfather effect, that we know that there's no time travel, that time travel will never exist, because if it were to exist in the future, someone would come back. And this is the actual thing, they would come back and murder their grandfather, which would then in turn not allow them to be born, which seems super odd. But out of all the things you would want to do in time travel, you'd come back to murder your grandfather. I think about 1,000 things other than murdering my grandfather that I do with time travel. But in regards to flying vehicles, I actually thought about that when I was on my way to San Francisco. I thought, I'm driving pretty fast. Yeah, I'm driving with one hand. And I just think about the advancement and how we all condition ourselves to be able to be moving this fast. And I thought to myself, if we were indeed flying, there'd probably be structures in play to keep us really cool while we're flying 300 miles an hour. How and when, I'm not too sure. And I'm not too sure if I'd want to fly. And because I think about the accidents. But yeah, in regards to that, I'm not too sure about the near future. Thank you.
Stacy, speaking of driving quickly, what's your dream midlife crisis car and where would you take it?
Too late, past my midlife, I hope. My dream car. I've always had dream cars and I drive fast. So it's like you knew I was the person to ask this question. In high school, my dream car was a Jaguar. I got a little bit more practical as I got older because I saw the repair rates and problems of having to take my expensive car in for repairs. The car I drive now is a hybrid, so I don't have to plug it in and I still have the benefit of the electric engine. I looked at a Tesla before I got this, and I think that was lending itself to being in my dream car world. The sleek design, the computerized inside, all appealed to me because it was very fancy and very comfortable, sitting on a leather couch effect in my car. Plugging it in is the part I'm still not too jazzed about. So if there was a way that I could store that energy, my car charges itself off the battery. The hybrid is a nice blend. Doesn't quite get the full effects to the environment, however, because gas is still involved. All we have to do is just hover a little bit. I don't have to fly high. I just want to hover just a little bit. Like they have hoverboards. It's only a matter of time to apply that scientific strategy to the tons of cars on the road. Thank you.
I think you're onto something. Frictionless driving.
Yeah.
Robin, in California or in the Bay Area, pedestrians get the right of way. I'm sure you've encountered that while you're driving. Have you ever wondered why pedestrians get the right of way and wish it were a little different, that we all just got along on the roads and did what went with the flow?
Susie, are you sure that people have the right of way? I've heard of that, but nowadays you better watch out for the cars because people think they have bumpers on their behinds. People think have the right way. I mean, they think that the car should stop, the buses should stop for them. And I think that's a little bit arrogant, a little bit prideful, a little bit dangerous and deadly. I've been to Mexico City, and you better believe the driver has the right way, and you better hurry up and get yourself across the street. So I am older now, and so I try to hurry myself across the street by just stopping, hey, can you see me? And I'll let them have the way. But I think that we should get along, like you said. But another thing, better than get along, follow the traffic lights. When it's green, you go. When it's yellow, you look. And when it's red, you stop. If we could all, pedestrians and drivers, follow those rules, we'll all be happier and alive. Madam Table Topics Master.
Well said. Gray, tell us about the most fun you've had in a car. Give us an idea of where it took you and what kind of car it was.
Oh, well, let me just start with the kind of car. I had an argument with my father about what car I should have for my first car. He wanted me to get, what was that car that you brought out? I think it was Raphael, the Ford Fairlane, I think. It's some very nondescript sedan, right? I wanted a Ford Mustang, and I had one already picked out. And Dad was like, all right, well, if you have your heart set on that, you're gonna have it. I got it. And boy, was that car fun. That was a 4-speed, 4 on the floor, dual exhaust, 4-barrel carburetor, 289. Oh my, I could out race anybody. Somehow I didn't die, but I did win some contests. I hope the statute of limitations has expired by now. I was, how old was I? 16 at the time. This is when all kids have accidents. So the most fun I ever had in a car, in any car, was driving that car anytime. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Madam Table Topics Master.
That is rad. I thought of the movie Grease. Dax, you're a Californian. Could you live with a car, or do you? Make a case for that, especially now during a pandemic, or make a case for why we all need cars.
Thank you, Susie. Believe it or not, I've never really bought my own car. I married a husband who had a 1987 Mercedes, Lorenzo the Benzo. Even has the license plate, Lorenzo, on the Californian black with the gold letters. And I've really enjoyed that car. I realize switching from a biking, busing, walking culture to car culture, it's really hard to go back. Every place where I used to drive or I used to bike, now I drive. And it's incredible to see how much more comfortable it is to be in an air-conditioned box and moving with my music playing, and to not have to worry about potholes so much, or to a lesser extent, reckless driving. I feel a little safer in a metal box with reckless drivers than I do on my bike. I have to say, having a car, it's hard to fight against that, especially now that my father-in-law sent an all-electric vehicle down from Alaska. He started the all-electric cab company up in Juneau, and because there are no cruise ships this year, it's not getting used. So Lorenzo the Benzo is being parked for now, and I'm fostering a Chevy Bolt where I can talk to it, and it'll send text messages to my friends, and they'll read the text messages to me, and I can see a map, which no sci-fi film has ever predicted would be in a car. There's flying cars before they just had GPS maps. To me, it's magical. And I think that as much as I love public transportation and I wish it was better, I wish there was more, I wish it was more accessible, I really do enjoy a car, a nice car.
Thank you. I didn't know that about text messages, although I saw one car listed that said that it had Wi-Fi, and I was like, I don't even want to go there. This was just a little taste of Table Topics, which is one portion of every Toastmasters meeting in the world with your communication and leadership. It's an unprecedented way to connect with new friends in a community while improving your confidence and speaking skills. Well, I obviously have work to do.